Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
You know, John, it's Friday, so we can have a little bit more fun. And so I'm going to start off our B block. You notice I didn't say segment B. I called it the B block.
B block. Yeah. It's also a place in jail. Go ahead.
The B block with something that came up on my Facebook feed, okay? Apparently I must be a friend of hers or something like that. Her name is Diane McIntyre Quitmeyer, Q-U-I-T-M-E-Y-E-R. I'm not making fun of her. I'm just reading something which I thought was interesting.
Okay.
Why are you laughing already?
Because I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay.
Like Facebook to me is a land of sexagenarians who do nothing but post pictures and start fights.
Okay.
So I know this is going to be good.
Okay. It's relatively, it's not that long ago. It says 7 hours ago, okay? This is Diane McIntyre, M-C-E-N-T-I-R-E, Quitmeyer. She writes, I went on a date this week. The man is from Chesterfield and has no financial issues. Okay, footnote that for a moment. Okay.
Yeah, boy, that's for sure. That
Right.
shows where her mind is. Go ahead.
We both like thrifting, so he took me to some thrift shops in Waterloo, Illinois. Okay, once again, footnote that. It was fun, and afterwards we had a late lunch at an Italian restaurant. He told me he only eats once a day. After I finished my salad, I had left a few bites of the yellow lettuce. He asked me if I was going to eat it. When I said no, he took my plate and ate every bite. Yikes! After arriving home, I had a cup of tea in the center console that I was going to throw away. I had been in the car all day. He said, no, I'll drink that. OMG. What are your thoughts? Sherry said, I'm too picky. Okay, first off, this is interesting to me. If you're from Chesterfield, there's never been anybody in Chesterfield who's gone broke or gone bankrupt or had their car repoed or their house foreclosed on. You know what I mean? Because it's Chesterfield going to give you like the force field against financial woes. I mean,
there's a trailer park that I drive past frequently in Chesterfield. So Chesterfield has some economic diversity. But go ahead.
But John, is this just a St. Louis thing where if you say, well, I live in Normandy.
Yeah, I was talking to a man who lived in Ladue, and he has no. How does she know? Has she seen his balance sheet? Has she seen the rate of change for his 401k? How does she know?
I'll read the sentence again. The man is from Chesterfield and has no financial issues. How does she know that? Just because he's from Chesterfield.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would love for her to be like, have you seen his books?
Right.
Like, what is this? Yeah. What's his asset allocation?
The very next sentence, we both like thrifting, so he took me to some thrift shops in Waterloo, Illinois. Okay, right away, I say he's a fake because nobody in Chesterfield goes to Illinois. You know, far be it to Waterloo. They don't cross the river, and they wouldn't be caught dead in Waterloo. They just wouldn't.
Yeah, that's a great point. But let's go to the food. There's so much wrong with this, Brad. Or I should say there's so much to digest here. Pardon the expression.
After I finished my salad, I left 2 bites of the yellow lettuce. He asked me if I was going to eat it. I said no. He took my plate, ate every bite. Okay, so the whole thing is, and it's funny because if you read the responses to it, it's almost all women. They're saying crazy stuff like, well, I don't know. And I answered it, of course, in my tongue-in-cheek factor or action, but I won't go into that. But see, once again, this is why I agree with Gary Vee when he said we're in the late stage of decline. We're like in the Roman Empire near the end. When this is important to people. Now, once again, let's look at her. I have no idea who Diane McIntyre Quitmeyer is, but apparently she's a single woman who has some money, and she's looking to, find a new guy, and he has to check all the boxes. He has to be thrifty. He has to live in a nice neighborhood.
Yeah, he has to have a lot of money but be cheap. That's a good. Actually, I don't know. I don't know what she's doing on Monday, but I got some free time.
Okay, am I a weirdo to look at this and go like, roll my eyes? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so, and it underscores the fact, though, Brad, on the bigger level, is she actually looking for advice, or is she doing one of those things where she's like, I want to criticize a man, but also show that I'm in demand and let people know I am out there and men want to hang out with me. But, ooh, look at this drama. Weigh in on my life. Isn't that what Facebook is for some people, Brad?
Well,
Now, you would use Facebook, I presume.
I do. I use Facebook quite a bit.
But hold on. Let me finish that sentence. You would use Facebook, I presume, to stay in contact with people you know and like, to make friends of yours laugh, to keep up with people, maybe read some interesting stories. You would not go on there and be like, just to let everyone know my status. And, oh, my God, there's a little drama. Am I crazy or what? This woman sounds like she may be a wonderful person. But this is the kind of thing that you would hear from a woman who's reached her epiphany phase, that's like right before she hits the wall and she's like, oh, my God, I have to stop hooking up with attractive guys and get some schlub who I can lock down who's got some money. She sounds like a woman in her epiphany phase, not a woman who's in her 60s who knows who she is.
I guess, the interesting thing about it is I go back to the groundbreaking book that came out, 30 years ago? I think it's maybe been more than that. I bought this book and I devoured this book, and it was The Millionaire Next Door. Matter of fact, I can find it on Wikipedia.
You've talked about it a lot, yeah.
And the interesting part of it is essentially that the idea being is that the people you think have money don't, and the people you think don't have money do. And it all comes down to net worth. And John, you being a financial guy, you look at financials all day long. I find it interesting that I see ads on Facebook and things like that, guy says, like, for example, you're going to laugh at me when I tell you this story. I watched a video by a guy who was interviewing a guy who owns a tow truck company, okay? Yeah. And he talked about, it's sort of a sad story because the guy talked about he was a machinist and he loved being a machinist, and he had cancer and he had to take a couple of years off from his company. He gets back in shape, goes back to work. 2 weeks later, the company goes out of business. They literally fold and they go bankrupt, and he's out of a job. So he's 59 years old. He's trying to find a job, and he can't get hired because he's 59 years old. Nobody wants to hire him. He's an old guy. He's had cancer. So he buys a tow truck and starts a towing business. Well, he starts throwing these figures out. Wow, that tow truck makes me $100,000 a year. And I say, okay, is that net or gross? Is that, in other words, the idea.
Yeah, exactly. That's what matters. Go ahead.
The idea being is, does he take in $100,000 a year with zero expenses, or does he take in $200,000 a year, and the truck and the oil and the diesel and the maintenance and everything and the payment cost him $100,000 a year, so he puts $100,000 to the bottom line. And the whole concept behind the Millionaire Next Door is, if you live in $1 million house and you own it outright, you're a millionaire. But if you live in $1 million house and you had a $950,000 mortgage, you're not a millionaire. You have $50,000 net worth. I mean, am I correct or what?
You're absolutely right. And so I've never read the book, but I know that you've talked about it. But it's also, to me, it seems like the book would also be suggesting the fact that the mentality of keeping up with the Joneses, or if you're a 35-year-old woman, I have to keep up with the group of girls that I went to college with and that I grew up with. And, they have a house that's this many square foot and they live in this neighborhood, so I really need to live there too. Like, if you care about that, then your issues are deeper than financial.
I couldn't agree more. The book came out in 1996. The two authors were William D. Danko and Thomas J. Stanley. American writer and Thomas J. Stanley, American writer, business theorist. He was the author and co-author of several award-winning books, America's Wealthy, including the next New York Times bestseller, Millionaire Next Door, and The Millionaire Mind. He served as chief advisor to Data Points, a company that founded based on research and data. Received a doctorate in business administration. Oh, he's Dr. Stanley from the University of Georgia. He was on the faculty of University of Albany. Once again, and see, the interesting thing about this was, once again, You and I, through the years, how many times have you heard teachers go, oh, we don't make very much money. We hardly get paid. It's lucky we have enough money for gas to make it to school. Dave Ramsey, and the interesting part, remember we talked about this 2 or 3 weeks ago, Dave Ramsey became a good friend with Tom Stanley. And I remember hearing this recently on a Dave Ramsey broadcast. He talks about him and he became good friends, and he said he was bothered by the fact that so many people poked fun at the book Millionaire Next Door because they said the sample depth was not deep enough. In other words, they didn't have enough sample points. They didn't talk to enough millionaires. And so Dave Ramsey decided they were going to redo the whole concept of Millionaire Next Door, and they were going to, as Grant Cardone would say, they were going to 10x the sample size. So they interviewed, I think, like 15,000 people. They researched 15,000 millionaires, and once again, 5 categories of the millionaires of the United States. Who are the 5 categories of millionaires of the United States? One of them is a lawyer, one of them's, but the third category is teacher. So when you hear, and what's funny is, I have thrown this at some of my teacher friends. You know, we hardly make any money. We don't make any money. And I sent him the article. I sent him the Dave Ramsey article. Okay, explain this to me. Well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Dave Ramsey, what is he? You know, but yet these are the same people who will tell me church they go to. Oh, we've got the Dave Ramsey course at our church, and Dave Ramsey's wonderful. Okay, Dave Ramsey says the 3rd most common millionaire in the United States is a teacher. Hi, he's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And well, but if a teacher isn't in great financial shape and they hear you say that, Brad, they're immediately going to get defensive. And the only thing they could quibble with is then they assume the study must be flawed, because they're doing what all humans do, which is they take their own personal experience, and if it doesn't match up with data, they say that the data must be wrong. No, maybe you, talking to your teacher friend, maybe you just aren't wise with your money. Maybe you just need to make better financial decisions.
Right, that would go over real well, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, and you know what? That'd be one less person in your Facebook feed, Brad.
Okay.
Now, I want to go back to the salad thing. If she is supposedly, we'll be a little bit crass here. If she's already like swapping saliva with this guy, why does she care that he takes 2 bites of her lettuce?
Well, hold it. This was a first date, so not it's like they're making out yet.
Okay. This was a first date.
It was a first date. Okay. So
she's weirded out by the fact that he took bites of her salad.
Do you want to hear something interesting?
Yeah.
In women's parlance, and is that the proper word, parlance?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. In women's parlance, a first date is not a first date. To a guy, it's a first date. To a woman, it's a meeting. Do you know this story?
No, I don't know this.
Okay, the reason for that is if you have a quote-unquote first date with a dude and you're a woman and he turns out to be horrible, you will never be accused of dating the guys. In other words, if someone said,
you just met up with him.
Susie, I saw you with Billy Smith, and oh my God, you know about Billy. He's scum of the earth. I can't believe I saw you eating dinner with Billy Smith. And the woman would say, well, it wasn't a date. We just had a meeting. So to the guy, it's a first date. To the woman, it's a meeting. And then if the woman has approved of his thrift stores in Waterloo and his bank account.
And she likes his car. And she checked out his balance sheet.
Right. And he lives in Chesterfield. And then it might be time for a second date. Okay.
Now, why is he taking her out for food if he hasn't already had some sort of intimacy with her?
John, I don't know. Don't ask me these questions.
I mean, is there something she's not telling us, or is he just a simp? Like, is he buying her food when she's brought nothing to the table so far?
That's John Combest, Mr. MCP himself. Okay.
That's right.
Did you read this story about an investigator has found Kim Gardner?
Good.
I'm going like...
And it was almost in the top 3, Brad. It was almost in the top 3. But run through it. We got a couple minutes left in cell block B.
Well, the bizarre part of this is we're talking about a woman who used to be the prosecuting attorney, who essentially threw a governor out of office in the state of Missouri, broke the law and not saying this, saying, well, she broke the law. She broke the law. She hired a dude friend of hers, which there's a lot of similarities between Kim Gardner and the Fannie Willis thing. Remember, she brought in, yes. Seriously, she brought in the guy who was the ex-FBI guy who turned out to be not what everybody thought he was, and made a lot of mistakes. And remember, there were tapes that were recorded, and they said they weren't recorded, and then tapes appeared, and all these crazy weird stuff.
Yeah. Now, wait, real quick, Brad. I don't think anybody's suggesting that Kim Gardner was hooking up with that dude.
Okay, John.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know how to say this. Yeah, I don't think that they're on the same page as terms. I mean, I would just think that it would be incorrect to assume that their batteries, their poles, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just not sure that they're a match. But go ahead,
John. Remember one important thing.
What's that?
You've talked about magnets. Opposites attract.
I interrupted you though. But you were going through what? Yeah, I mean the parallels. I get what you're saying. She brought in somebody that was wildly incompetent and didn't take notes the right way. And when you find a way to make Eric Greitens look like the hero in a story, you really messed up.
Right. And
like you've got to go out of your way to make Eric Greitens a sympathetic character in the tale.
I make the parallel because to me there are so many incredible parallels between Greitens and Trump, and the roots of both of them come back to the fact that these two dudes came from nowhere and ended up with top political jobs they got elected to. And once again, it would be like if you were I'm going to make another comparison, okay?
Okay.
The next comparison you're going to roll your eyes when I say this. Caitlin Clark, okay? Once again, the reason she's getting so much pushback from the NBA, from the WNBA, is because, quote, she hasn't paid her dues yet. She hasn't done what the other women have done. And the same thing with Trump and Greitens. They never were a local committee person who became an alderman,
They never worked their way up the traditional establishment.
Right. They didn't do the thing where they started out, as a committee person, and they were on the school board, and then they were on the alderman, and then they were a state rep, and then they're a state senator. Because of the fact it's the good old boys club. And when I say good old boys, it's not good old boys anymore. The women are in the same category. They are just the same way because, well, he's never run for office before. He's never, what's Greitens ever done? He's a Navy SEAL. What's Trump ever done? He doesn't know anything about business. That kind of a deal. And so here's this deal where she leaves office, finds out the city of St. Louis taxpayers are paying for her extended education. And I'm thinking to myself, here I'm sitting here thinking, if I could redo my life, I would go to law school. Because when you're an attorney, to me, that gives you a license to make huge sums of money in so many respects. Because in the state of Missouri, perfect example, if you're an attorney, you're a real estate broker. You don't have to go to real estate school. You don't have to open up a real estate office. You don't have to do any of that crap. You can buy and sell real estate all day long because and you could, if once you have your law degree, you can practice at a law. You can be like Mike Carter and you can fix traffic tickets. You can be like Brown and Crouppen and have people fall over things and you sue them. And you can be like Jim Onder, you can go after people with mesothelioma and stuff, or help people with mesothelioma. It gives you the license to, in my eyes, the license to the future. Now, having said this, I have someone in my family who's an attorney. My daughter's an attorney. There are times, and I hope she doesn't listen to the show, I get very frustrated with her because I've had this discussion with her. I've said to her, you have an amazing gift in that you have a license to change the lives of many people. I mean, many people.
Yeah, of course she can.
And she'll, I don't know what you're talking about. But why in the world would Kim Gardner, who everybody knows her name, why would she go into healthcare? I know she was a nurse before that. And why would she be working at a clinic in South County? Explain that to me, John. Can you explain that?
Well, first of all, because she would get an opportunity to work with some people like Brad Hildebrand. Like if you have folks who, are getting up there in age. And maybe she didn't have enough contact on a day-to-day basis with geriatrics who need some medical help, Brad.
It doesn't make any sense, John.
I know, but also, hey, there's something to be said for her wanting to expand her professional credentials. And maybe she really looked up to Dr. Brad Bradshaw. Maybe she really wanted to be a doctor and an attorney, Brad. Are you saying that black women don't have don't have the right to expand their professional capabilities, Brad? It sounds like that's what you're saying.
John, I'm saying that, and I'm not a guy, I've never, here I'm going to say something, people are going to go, oh my God, I've never done DoorDash or Uber Eats or anything like that. If I want my food, I get in my car and I go get it, okay? But that would be like me opening up the door one day and the DoorDash driver is Dr. Bob Onder. And I said, I go, Dr. Onder, you got an MD, you got a JD, you were a state rep, you were a state senator, you're running for U.S. Congress. What are you doing DoorDash? Well, Brad, I'm just trying to expand my frontiers. I go like, I don't quite get it.
And please flag for Agnes that I have a whole lot of respect for people with master's degrees and Bob Onder.
And EDD degrees from...
And EDD, yes, erectile dysfunction doctors.
I have to look that up, make sure that is what it is.
I think that's what EDD is, right?
Okay, we're almost near the end of the show, and we're running late.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?